Commander Jake Sullivan stood on the bridge of the ESS Discovery, watching the empty space around them through the main view screen. The stars looked normal here, just like they did back near Earth. He had been exploring space for 10 years now. But this region near the Kepler 442 system felt different somehow. Navigation Officer Lisa Martinez sat at her station, checking her instruments for the third time in an hour. "Commander, I'm getting some strange readings," Lisa said, her voice filled with confusion. "There's massive energy coming from somewhere, but I can't see the source." Jake walked over to her station and looked at the display. The numbers made no sense. Energy readings this high should come from a star or a black hole, but there was nothing visible in front of them. Chief Engineer Ryan Torres called from his station at the back of the bridge. "Sir, we have a problem with the slip drive," Ryan said, his hands moving quickly over his controls. "Something is pulling us toward coordinates that don't exist on our maps." The slip drive was humanity's greatest invention. It let their ships travel faster than light by slipping through small tears in space. But right now, it was acting like it had a mind of its own. Jake felt the ship shake slightly as the drive engaged without his orders. "Can you shut it down?" Jake asked. "I'm trying, but it's not responding," Ryan replied, sweat forming on his forehead. "Whatever is out there, it's stronger than our systems." The view screen suddenly filled with blinding light. When it cleared, Jake couldn't believe what he saw. A massive structure stretched out before them, bigger than anything humans had ever built. It looked like a city in space, with towers and bridges connecting different sections. Lights moved along its surface like rivers of energy. "My God," whispered Communications Officer Nina Brooks. "What is that thing?" Before anyone could answer, Lisa's instruments started beeping loudly. "Commander, I'm counting dozens of ships around that structure. They're not human designs." Jake's heart raced. First contact with alien life was supposed to happen under controlled conditions, with diplomats and scientists ready. Not like this, with his small exploration ship pulled into unknown space by forces they didn't understand. "All stations, defensive positions," Jake ordered. "But don't fire unless fired upon." 3 sleek ships approached the Discovery. They moved in ways that seemed impossible, turning and stopping without any visible engines. Their hulls glowed, with patterns of blue and green light that pulsed like heartbeats. Jake had never seen anything so beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "They're sending us a message," Nina said, her fingers working on her console. "But it's in languages our computers don't recognize." "Wait, I'm getting something else. It's like an automatic warning system." The alien ships surrounded the Discovery but didn't attack. Instead, they seemed to be escorting the human vessel toward the massive structure. Jake realized they had no choice but to go along with it. Their slip drive was still not responding to commands. "Get me a full scan of that structure," Jake told Lisa. "I want to know everything about it." "Sir, the scanners can barely process what they're seeing," Lisa replied. "The structure appears to exist in multiple dimensions at once. Parts of it phase in and out of normal space." One of the alien ships attached itself to the Discovery's docking port. Jake heard the sounds of the airlock cycling. His security team was already in position, but he hoped they wouldn't need their weapons. The aliens that boarded were tall and thin, with skin that changed colors like oil on water. They wore no visible technology, but somehow spoke perfect English, through voices that seemed to come from the air itself. "Greetings, primitive ones," said the lead alien. "We are the Veilthara. We are amazed that your species has managed to breach the dimensional barriers protecting this place. Your technology is quite crude, yet somehow effective in ways we did not expect." Jake stepped forward, trying to project confidence he didn't feel. "I am Commander Jake Sullivan of the Earthship Discovery. We mean no harm. We were exploring the system when we were pulled here." The alien's colors shifted to what might have been amusement. "Pulled here? You activated a slip drive near a dimensional nexus point. It is like a child playing with fire in a powder room. You are fortunate you were not destroyed." "What is this place?" Jake asked. "This is the Nexus," the alien replied. "It serves as neutral ground for species advanced enough to find it. We have been waiting many cycles to see if your kind would develop sufficient technology. We did not expect it to happen so soon or in such a clumsy manner. The alien gestured toward the massive structure. You will come with us. The council must decide what to do with you. Your species is not ready for what you have stumbled into, but you are here nonetheless. Jake looked at his crew. They were scared, but trying not to show it. These aliens treated them like children who had wandered into an adult gathering. But they were here now, and there was no going back. The Discovery followed the alien ships toward the Nexus, carrying humanity into a larger universe than they had ever imagined. Dr. Amanda Cole pressed her face against the observation window as the Discovery moved deeper into the Nexus. The structure was even more incredible up close. Buildings twisted and curved in impossible ways, defying every law of physics she knew. Bridges made of pure energy connected floating platforms where different alien species moved about their business. I count at least 50 different species, Amanda said to Security Chief Ben Parker, who stood beside her. Maybe more. Some of them don't even look like they're made of normal matter. Ben nodded, his trained eyes watching for threats. He noticed how the different alien groups moved in patterns that showed clear social order. Some species stepped aside when others approached. Others seemed to avoid certain areas entirely. It reminded him of animal behavior back on Earth, but much more complex. The Velthara escort led them to a docking bay that looked like it could hold 100 ships the size of the Discovery. Alien vessels of every shape and size filled the space. Some looked like living creatures with wings and tentacles. Others appeared to be made of crystal or light itself. Stay close to the group, Commander Sullivan told his crew as they walked through corridors filled with beings beyond their wildest imagination. Don't touch anything and try not to stare too much. That was easier said than done. Amanda watched a group of beings that looked like walking storms of gas and electricity drift past them. Their Velthara guide's colors shifted to what she was learning meant annoyance. The Nethermind Collective finds your crude mental emanations disturbing, the alien said. Your thoughts are too loud and chaotic. Most primitive species learn to quiet their minds before coming here. They entered a vast chamber where hundreds of aliens had gathered. The ceiling stretched so high that clouds formed near the top. In the center sat beings that were clearly important. Amanda could feel the power radiating from them even from a distance. The Galactic Convergence Council, their guide explained. They will decide your fate. The central figure was made entirely of blue crystal that rang like music when it moved. Around it sat representatives of dozens of species, each more advanced than the last. Amanda felt very small and very human in this place. I am Chancellor Vexthara of the Zephyrian Collective. The crystal being's voice echoed through the chamber without using sound. You are the species called humans from the planet Earth. We have been monitoring your world for some time. Diplomatic Officer Carol Jensen stepped forward. She had trained for first contact situations, but nothing had prepared her for this. Chancellor, we are honored to meet you and the other species of the Convergence. We come in peace and hope for friendship. The Chancellor's crystal form chimed in what might have been laughter. Friendship? Your species has barely learned to leave your own planet. You fight wars over resources and territory. Your technology is thousands of years behind the least advanced member of this council. Carol felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment, but she kept her voice steady. We may be young as a species, but we are eager to learn and grow. Perhaps, said another voice. This one came from a being that looked like a cloud of silver mist. But the question is whether you are capable of learning. We have tested your kind through subtle influences over your history. The results have been mixed at best. Ben Parker felt anger rising in his chest. These aliens had been testing humanity without their knowledge or consent. But he kept quiet, knowing that showing aggression now would only make things worse. Your slip drive technology is crude but functional, continued the silver being. However, it was developed through accident rather than true understanding. You stumbled upon dimensional manipulation without grasping the principles involved. Chancellor Vexthara form pulsed with different colors. The Council has 3 options for your species. First, we can erase your memories of this encounter and return you to Earth with technology that will prevent you from accidentally finding us again. Amanda felt her heart sink. To lose this opportunity for humanity would be devastating. Second, the Chancellor continued, we can keep you here for study. Your species shows interesting traits that we do not fully understand. You might serve as useful research subjects. That option sounded even worse to Amanda. Being treated like laboratory animals was not what any of them had hoped for. Third, we can attempt to educate you, though this has never been successful with species at your developmental level. Most cannot handle the knowledge and destroy themselves within a few generations. The chamber fell silent as the aliens discussed among themselves. Amanda could hear the sounds of their communications, but none of it made sense to her. Some spoke in musical tones, others in colors and light patterns, and a few seemed to communicate through changes in local gravity. Finally, Chancellor Vexthara spoke again. We will observe your crew for a period to determine which option is most appropriate. You will be given quarters in the guest section of the Nexus. Do not attempt to leave this area without escort. As they were led away, Amanda heard fragments of the alien conversations continuing behind them. Several species seemed to think humans were too dangerous to be allowed to develop further. Others viewed them as barely intelligent animals that posed no real threat. They think we're nothing, Nina Brooks whispered to Amanda as they walked through more impossible corridors. Maybe that's good, Amanda replied quietly. If they underestimate us, they might not see what we're really capable of. Their quarters turned out to be surprisingly comfortable, though designed for beings very different from humans. The furniture adjusted itself to their bodies, and the walls showed images of peaceful landscapes from hundreds of different worlds. Jake gathered his crew together once they were alone. I know this isn't what any of us expected when we left Earth, but we're here now, and we represent all of humanity. Whatever happens next, we need to show them that humans are worth something. Outside their windows, the Nexus continued its ancient dance between dimensions. Somewhere in this vast structure, the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy were deciding humanity's future. None of them expected that the primitive humans they had just dismissed might surprise them in ways they couldn't imagine. 3 days passed in their guest quarters before Chief Mechanic Tony Garcia got his first chance to show what humans could do. One of their Vale-Thara guards was struggling with a device that controlled the room's environmental systems. The aliens. Colors kept shifting to frustrated patterns as it tried different approaches to fix the problem. Excuse me, Tony said, approaching carefully. Mind if I take a look? The Vale-Thara's colors shifted to surprise. You wish to examine Vale-Thara technology? Your species has not yet mastered basic energy manipulation. Maybe not, Tony replied, with a grin, but I've been fixing broken things since I was 8 years old. The alien handed over the device reluctantly. Tony studied it for a few minutes, turning it over in his hands. It was clearly advanced technology, but the basic principles reminded him of similar problems he had solved on Earth. He pulled out his pocket toolkit and made a few adjustments to what looked like connection points. The device hummed to life, working perfectly. The Vale-Thara's colors cycled through patterns Tony had never seen before. How did you accomplish this? The alien asked. Our technicians have been unable to repair this unit for several cycles. Tony shrugged. Sometimes the simplest answer is the right one. You had a loose connection and a feedback loop in the power system. I just rerouted the energy flow. Word of Tony's repair job spread quickly through the Nexus. Soon, other aliens began bringing broken devices to the human quarters. Tony fixed most of them using basic principles and spare parts from the Discovery. Each success brought more puzzled aliens wanting to understand how such a primitive being could solve problems their advanced minds couldn't. Meanwhile, Dr. Amanda Cole was having her own breakthrough with the Nethermind Collective. The gas-like beings had been struggling with communication problems between different parts of their hive mind. When Amanda learned about their situation, she suggested an approach based on human psychology. You're trying to maintain perfect information flow between all your individual parts, Amanda explained to the swirling cloud of consciousness that spoke for the collective. But maybe some randomness and partial information would actually make your system stronger. The Nethermind's response created small lightning storms in the air around Amanda. Randomness is inefficiency. Partial information leads to errors, not always, Amanda said patiently. In human brains, we don't have perfect communication between all our neurons. The partial connections and random firing patterns actually help us be creative and solve problems in new ways. She spent hours explaining concepts like controlled chaos and emergent behavior. The Nethermind Collective listened with growing interest. When they tried implementing some of Amanda's suggestions, their communication efficiency improved by 30%. Pilot Steve Chun made his own discovery while being escorted through the Nexus by their guards. The structure's geometry was so complex that most species needed advanced computers to navigate it. But Steve found he could find his way around using nothing but his instincts. "Turn left here," Steve told their Velthara guide during one of their supervised walks. "That passage leads to a restricted area," the alien replied. "How do you know of its existence?" "It is not marked on any maps your species would have access to." Steve couldn't explain it well. The corridors and passages just felt right to him. He could sense where they led without needing to see signs or consult navigation systems. His spatial reasoning, developed through years of flying ships through asteroid fields and stellar phenomena, worked even in the impossible spaces of the Nexus. The Velthara began testing Steve's navigation abilities. They took him through increasingly complex routes, trying to confuse him with passages that folded back on themselves or chambers that existed in multiple dimensions at once. Steve never got lost. His human intuition proved more reliable than their mathematical calculations. The biggest breakthrough came when Communications Officer Nina Brooks was asked to help resolve a dispute between two alien species. The Kethmori and the Veltaran had been arguing for weeks over territorial rights in a distant star system. Both sides had valid legal claims under galactic convergence law, and neither would compromise. Nina listened to both sides present their cases through translation devices. The Kethmori were insect-like beings who valued logic and efficiency above all else. The Veltaran looked like living plants and made decisions based on long-term growth patterns. Their ways of thinking were so different that they couldn't find common ground. What if we approach this differently? Nina suggested during one particularly heated session. Instead of focusing on who has the better legal claim, why don't we talk about what each species actually needs from that star system? The alien mediators looked confused. "The legal precedent is clear," said one. "Either the Kethmori or the Veltaran has the superior claim. But what do you really need?" Nina asked the Kethmori representative. "What would make your people successful?" After some discussion, it became clear that the Kethmori mainly wanted access to the system's asteroid belt for mining. The Veltaran were interested in the planets for long-term colonization. They weren't actually competing for the same resources. Nina helped them work out a sharing agreement that gave each species what they needed. The Kethmori got exclusive mining rights to the asteroids while the Veltaran could develop the planets. Both sides left satisfied. Something that had seemed impossible just days before. News of these successes began spreading through the Nexus. Aliens who had dismissed humans as primitive curiosities started paying attention. Some viewed the humans as potential assets, while others worried about what their unconventional approaches might mean for the established order. Chancellor Vextara summoned the human delegation for another meeting. This time, the massive chamber held even more alien species than before. Amanda could sense a different mood in the room. Instead of condescending amusement, she felt genuine curiosity and perhaps a touch of concern. "Your species continues to surprise us," the Chancellor said, its crystal form resonating with complex harmonics. "You solve problems in ways our scientists do not understand. You navigate spaces that should be impossible for your level of development. You mediate disputes that have puzzled our finest diplomats. Jake stepped forward, sensing an opportunity. We may be young, but humans have always been good at finding new ways to approach old problems. We'd like to learn from you, but maybe we have things to teach as well. The chamber filled with alien communications as the various species debated among themselves. Amanda caught fragments of their discussions. Some were intrigued by humanity's potential, while others worried about disrupting systems that had worked for millennia. Finally, Chancellor Vexthara spoke again. The Council has decided to extend your observation period. You will be given limited access to Nexus facilities and allowed to interact with other species under supervision. Perhaps there is more to learn from your kind than we first thought. As they left the chamber, Amanda felt cautiously optimistic. The aliens were still treating humans as junior partners at best, but at least they were being taken seriously now. She had no idea that their small successes were about to become crucial as an ancient threat awakened in the depths of space. The alarm came without warning. A sound unlike anything the humans had heard before filled the Nexus, vibrating through the walls and floors until everyone could feel it in their bones. Jake and his crew rushed from their quarters to find chaos. In the corridors, aliens of every species moved with urgent purpose, their usual calm replaced by something that looked very much like fear. "What's happening?" Nina asked their Velthara guide, whose colors had shifted to patterns of deep purple and black. "The Devourers have awakened," the alien replied, its voice tight with emotion. "We had hoped they would remain dormant for another 1,000 cycles." Within an hour, the human delegation was escorted to an emergency session of the Galactic Convergence Council. The Great Chamber buzzed with alien communications in dozens of languages and energy patterns. Chancellor Vexthara's crystal form pulsed with urgent light as it addressed the assembly. Long-range sensors have detected multiple breaches in the containment barriers, the Chancellor announced. "The Devourers are testing our ancient defenses, and those defenses are failing." Amanda listened as the aliens explained the threat. Thousands of years ago, entities from outside normal space-time had nearly destroyed galactic civilization. They consumed energy and matter, growing stronger with each system they devoured. The Convergence had barely managed to contain them in dimensional barriers that existed between realities. "What exactly are these Devourers?" Jake asked during a brief pause in the discussions. A being that looked like living shadow spoke up. "They are hunger itself given form. They exist partially outside our reality, making them nearly impossible to detect or fight. They learn from every encounter, adapting their methods to overcome our defenses." The debate that followed showed the humans how the Galactic Convergence usually handled crises. The Velthara proposed building massive defensive installations around key systems. The Zephyrians wanted to retreat to higher dimensional planes where the Devourers couldn't follow. The Nethermind Collective suggested linking all their consciousness together to create a psychic barrier. Every proposal was met with mathematical analyses and probability calculations. Computer systems ran millions of simulations to determine the best course of action. The aliens approached the problem like a complex equation that could be solved through superior logic and technology. Jake requested access to the threat assessment data. Several alien species objected, claiming the information was too advanced for human understanding. But Chancellor Vexthara, curious about human problem-solving abilities, granted the request. The data was overwhelming. Star charts showing Devourer movements, energy readings from the dimensional barriers, historical records of past encounters. Jake's crew spent hours studying everything they could access. While the aliens continued their debates, the humans approached the problem differently. "Look at this pattern," Ryan Torres said, pointing to a display showing barrier breaches over the past several days. "They're not attacking randomly. Each breach is designed to test a different type of defense system." Amanda nodded, seeing what Ryan had noticed. "It's like they're probing for weaknesses. But not just physical weaknesses. They're testing reaction times, coordination between different species, even psychological responses." Steve Chun, who had been quietly studying the movement patterns, made an observation that chilled everyone. "These aren't random attacks by some kind of space monster. Look at how they approach each barrier. They retreat when they encounter strong resistance, then come back later with a different approach. That's intelligence, that's strategy. The most disturbing realization came from Tony Garcia, who had been examining the technical specifications of the containment barriers. The way they're attacking the energy systems reminds me of something I've seen before. Back on Earth, I dealt with a computer virus that used similar tactics. It would probe a system's defenses, then adapt its approach based on what it learned. Nina looked up from her analysis of the historical records. What if they're not entirely biological? What if they're some kind of hybrid between living beings and artificial intelligence? That would explain how they can exist in multiple dimensions and learn so quickly. When the humans presented their findings to the council, the reaction was mixed. Some aliens dismissed their conclusions as the speculations of a primitive species. Others were intrigued by the possibility that they had been fighting the wrong kind of enemy. Your analysis suggests the Devourers are more sophisticated than we believed, Chancellor Vextara acknowledged. But what difference does this make? Whether they are beasts or machines, they must still be stopped. It makes all the difference, Jake replied. If they're intelligent and adaptive, then predictable responses won't work. They'll learn to counter whatever you throw at them. You need to do something they can't predict or adapt to. The Zephyrian representative, a being of pure crystal and light, chimed with skeptical tones. Your species has no experience with threats of this magnitude. What could you possibly suggest that our finest minds have not already considered? Amanda stepped forward. Maybe that's exactly the point. You've all been fighting them the same way for thousands of years. Using the same strategies, the same technologies, the same logical approaches? But what if you tried something completely different? The chamber fell silent as the aliens considered this possibility. Their civilizations were built on logic, order, and predictable systems. The idea of deliberately choosing chaos and unpredictability went against everything they believed in. Before the debate could continue, new alarms sounded throughout the Nexus. Emergency lights bathed the chamber in red as urgent messages flooded in from the outer defenses. The first Devourer had broken through the dimensional barriers and was approaching the Nexus itself, through the great windows of the chamber. The assembled beings watched in horror as reality itself seemed to twist and bend. Space folded in on itself as something vast and hungry pushed its way into normal dimensions. The entity that emerged defied description. It was darkness given substance, void made manifest, emptiness that somehow had form and terrible purpose. The Nexus's defensive systems activated automatically. Energy weapons that could crack planets fired at the approaching threat. Dimensional manipulators tried to fold space around the creature and banish it back to the void. Nothing worked. The Devourer absorbed every attack, growing larger and more solid with each blast of energy it consumed. All our weapons are just feeding it, Ryan observed, watching the creature's impossible form expand as it devoured the energy directed at it. We're making it stronger. Chancellor Vextara's crystal form rang with tones of desperation. If our greatest weapons cannot harm it, then perhaps nothing can. The Nexus may be lost. Jake stood up, his voice cutting through the alien panic. Not if you let us try something different. Give us a ship and permission to engage that thing. We'll show you what humans can do when the rules don't work anymore. The chamber erupted in alien voices as species debated the wisdom of letting primitives fight their greatest enemy. But as the Devourer drew closer to the Nexus, consuming everything in its path, even the most skeptical aliens began to realize that conventional wisdom had failed them. The greatest crisis in galactic history was about to test whether humanity's chaotic, unpredictable approach to problems could succeed where thousands of years of advanced alien science had failed. Permission came just as the Devourer reached the outer ring of the Nexus. Chancellor Vextara's decision was driven more by desperation than confidence, but Jake didn't care about the aliens' motivations. He had a chance to prove that humans belonged among the stars, and he wasn't going to waste it. The Discovery launched from the Nexus, docking bay alongside a small fleet of alien vessels. The other ships moved in perfect formation, following predetermined attack patterns calculated by their advanced computers. Jake had his crew do the exact opposite. "Steve, I want you to fly like you're back home dodging asteroids in the belt," Jake ordered. "No flight plans, no calculated approaches. Just do whatever feels right." Steve grinned as he took manual control of the ship. "You got it, Commander. Time to show these aliens how humans really fly." The Devourer had grown to enormous size, its dark form stretching across several kilometers of space. Tendrils of pure void reached out from its core, dissolving anything they touched. The alien ships attacked with precise, coordinated strikes that should have been devastating. Instead, the creature seemed to anticipate every move. Its tendrils intercepted energy beams before they could reach vital areas. It shifted position just enough to avoid the most dangerous attacks. The entity had fought these species before and learned their patterns. Then the Discovery entered the battle zone. Steve's flying made no sense to anyone watching. He dove toward the Devourer at impossible angles, then suddenly veered away just as the creature's tendrils reached for him. He looped around debris fields and used gravitational slings. From destroyed ships to change direction without warning, the Devourer's attacks kept missing. Its tendrils struck empty space where the Discovery had been moments before. For the first time in the battle, the creature seemed confused by an opponent's behavior. "It can't predict what we're going to do," Amanda observed from her station. "Steve's not following any logical flight pattern, so the creature can't anticipate our movements." While Steve kept the Devourer distracted, Tony Garcia worked frantically in the engine room. He was combining human technology with alien components in ways that violated every safety protocol ever written. Spare parts from their slip drive were connected to Velthar energy converters. Emergency systems were rewired through Zephyrian crystal matrices. "Tony, please tell me you know what you're doing," Nina called over the ship's communication system. "Not even close," Tony replied cheerfully. "But that's the point. If I don't understand how this stuff works, then maybe that thing won't either." His jury-rigged weapon systems came online with a sound like reality tearing. The Discovery's modified. Weapons fired bursts of energy that flickered in and out of different dimensions. The beams seemed to exist and not exist at the same time, creating paradoxes that confused both human sensors and alien instruments. When these impossible energy bursts hit the Devourer, something amazing happened. Instead of absorbing the energy, like it had with every other attack, the creature actually flinched. Parts of its dark form flickered and became unstable. "We're hurting it," Ryan shouted from his engineering station. "Whatever Tony built, it's actually working." The alien fleet noticed the Discovery's success and tried to copy human tactics. But their ships weren't designed for chaotic maneuvers, and their weapons couldn't replicate Tony's impossible technology combinations. Only humans, with their natural tendency toward controlled chaos, could fight this way effectively. Jake opened communication channels to the alien fleet. "This is Commander Sullivan to all ships. Stop trying to fight this thing like a normal enemy. Do something unexpected. Break your own rules." Some of the alien captains began experimenting with unorthodox approaches. A Velthar ship started firing its weapons in random patterns instead of calculated strikes. A Zephyrian vessel began moving its crystalline hull in ways that created harmonic frequencies the Devourer had never encountered. The creature grew more agitated as the battle became increasingly unpredictable. Its form started to lose cohesion. In some areas, as it struggled to adapt to opponents who weren't following any logical patterns, but the Devourer was learning, even from chaos. It began creating smaller versions of itself, each one specialized to fight a different type of unpredictable behavior. The tide of battle started turning against the defenders. That's when Amanda made a crucial observation. The smaller entities are still connected to the main body through some kind of dimensional link. If we could disrupt that connection, they might not be able to share information. Nina had been monitoring alien communications throughout the battle, and she realized something important. The different alien species aren't coordinating well with each other. Their communication systems are too different. But what if we could? Create a real-time translation network that let everyone work together instantly? Working together, the human crew developed something that shouldn't have been possible. Nina created a universal communication system that translated not just languages, but entire ways of thinking. Velthara color patterns were converted into Zephyrian harmonic frequencies, which were then translated into Nethermind consciousness -streams. For the first time in the battle, every ship in the Allied fleet could understand each other perfectly. The aliens began coordinating their attacks in ways they had never managed before. Chaotic human tactics combined with alien technology and precision to create something entirely new. The Devourer found itself facing a type of opponent it had never encountered before. Individual ships moved unpredictably, but their chaos was coordinated through Nina's translation network. They were fighting like a single organism made up of completely different parts, each contributing its unique strengths. Steve dove the Discovery deep into the creature's form, his impossible flying keeping them alive in the heart of the entity. Tony's paradoxical weapons fired continuously, creating instabilities throughout the Devourer's structure. Amanda analyzed the creature's reactions and fed tactical data to the alien ships through Nina's communication network. The combined assault began tearing holes in the Devourer's dimensional form. The creature tried to retreat back into the void between realities, but the coordinated alien fleet was ready. Ships positioned at precise coordinates created a dimensional cage, trapping the entity in normal space where it was vulnerable. Jake made the final call. All ships concentrate fire on the dimensional anchor points. If we can collapse the space around it, we might be able to trap it permanently. The plan required perfect timing and trust between species that had never worked as equals before. Human unpredictability had to be balanced with alien precision. Chaos had to be coordinated without losing its essential randomness. As the combined fleet prepared for the final assault, Jake realized that win or lose, the galaxy would never be the same. Humanity had proven that their unique approach to problems had value even against the greatest threats imaginable. The question now was whether the ancient alien civilizations could accept that their way wasn't the only way to face the universe. The final assault on the Devourer required something that had never been attempted before in galactic history. Jake's plan was so dangerous that it should have been impossible to convince the alien species to try it. The strategy involved deliberately creating dimensional instabilities around the Nexus itself, risking the destruction of the greatest achievement of galactic civilization. You want us to do what? Chancellor Vexthara's crystal form resonated with harmonics of disbelief. Collapse the dimensional barriers in a controlled pattern, Jake explained to the emergency council session. The Devourer exists partially in normal space and partially in the void between dimensions. If we can create instabilities in both areas at the same time, we can trap it in a dimensional bubble that